All right. Well, I have a theme that will become clear as I go through my items this week. For somehow it just lined up with all the items I picked in the same general area. So I want to start off by talking about this article from Kevin Markham from dataschool.io. And he's been putting together lots of cool steps and guides to help people get into stuff. His area is mostly data science, but obviously on the Python side. So he created this thing called a step-by-step guide to contributing to GitHub.
Nice.
Yeah. So if you're new and you haven't actually yet contributed to an open source project, it's like, here are the 17 steps in order. And some of them are obvious, like you have to have a GitHub account, you have to fork the project. Others are not as obvious. Like whenever I fork something and I'm like, oh, I really want to get the changes from the thing I forked merged, sort of synchronize my fork with the remote fork. I'm always like, what is that command again about like remote origins or upstream? I got to set, and I'm like, so having that stuff all laid out in a nice little do this, then this, then this guide is helpful, even just for a couple of those steps if you've done it before. So I'll just run you through the steps really quick. People can go and see the pictures and the graphics and the explanation. But so I want to contribute to something. I think he contributed something back to scikit-learn, but it could be any project, right? So you start by figuring out what project you want to contribute to. You fork it to your GitHub account, and then you check it out. You clone it locally and load it up, make some changes, and then you make sure you have your origin remote pointed back to the thing on GitHub. And then the part I was just talking about, you can add an upstream remote, which allows you to say, give me the changes from the source repository to my forked version. You always want to get those, like maybe you forked it a while ago, but now you want to make a change. So you want to grab the changes from the upstream, the original repository, and bring it over. Create a new branch, a feature branch for your changes, because you're going to use that for a PR. Make changes, commit your changes, push it to your fork, create a PR by clicking the green create PR button, review the PR, have conversations around it, maybe make some more commits to your pull request. So it talks about like, if you submit a PR and they're like, that's great, but you need unit tests. How could you forget the unit tests? Please add those as well. How to do that, right? It's a common
Yeah.
story, I'm sure. Discuss it. And then once it's merged, or I guess closed even, you could delete the branch, but especially if it's merged, you don't need it anymore. So delete your branch, synchronize again your fork with the original project repository through the upstream link, because once they've accepted your changes, your main branch will be out of sync with theirs. So you want to do that. And then also as a nice little tips for contributing code section as well, with just some advice on how it goes. So the pictures and like here, type this for the step. I think this is pretty handy for a lot of folks.
Yeah. I mean, people just need to do it. It seems overwhelming when you start, because it seems like, oh my gosh, this seems like so over the top. And actually, so at work, when we switched from a different version control system to Git, we started out with this sort of a model. This is not an uncommon model, even within not just open source, but other projects. And originally, I thought this is a lot of overkill. We don't really need forks and branches. But there's a lot of benefits to doing both, and you just kind of get used to it, and it ends up being not that big of a deal.
Yeah, one of the advantages for what you're talking about, like inside your company, obviously it's important for open source, probably mostly because you don't have commit rights to it. So you make changes to your thing and you say, accept my changes, right? But inside a company, everyone has commit rights for the most part to their project they're working on. But it bundles it up in documents, like these are the changes to add this feature, these are the conversations around it, and here's how it got accepted, right? It's like a nice way to go beyond just like, here's a commit or a series of commits I did this week. I think some of them have to do with this Scrum thing I said I would do.
Yeah, one of the main reasons we kept the fork model in place is so that we can, if somebody accidentally pushes up a large executable or something that they shouldn't have committed in the first place, it's easier to kill a fork off than a branch of a project. So
I see. It's like a layer of insulation of mistakes.
yep, definitely.
Yeah, cool. Well, before we get on to a new language, a Python-inspired language, I just wanted to talk about a couple of things you can do to support the show. Obviously, Brian and I are both doing things outside the podcast that we think contribute back to the community. That if you want to support what we're doing, it would be great if you could check them out and consider them as you're learning Python things. So I have courses over at Talk Python Training. We have, I think, 170 hours of Python courses and probably a couple hundred hours of exercises for people to do over there. So if you're looking for courses or to learn stuff with Python in general, check out Talk Python Training. And Brian, you have some kind of book, I think.
Yeah, so I think that anybody that wants to learn how to test better should pick up a copy of Python Testing with PyTest. So, a book that I wrote about PyTest, it's not just, it kind of walks through all the different sorts of things you can do in the with PyTest, but also around testing a packaged project. And I think a lot of these carry over, even like switching databases and stuff. These things carry over for all sorts of types of projects. And I've got a lot of great feedback, and I think it's a good thing for people to read.
Yeah, awesome. It's a great book. And both of those things are linked at the top of the show notes. So you all can just check it out in your podcast players.